Hi everybody, welcome to this week's Grammar and Mechanics overview. Today we're going to look at verbs. And so to master verbs, we just need to focus on four main pillars. First is agreement, which means making sure that your subjects and their actions match up. Second is voice and mood, which is how you manage your tone. Third is time and form, which is all about past, present, and future. And then finally is consistency, which keeps your writing flowing smoothly. And so let's start with the first pillar. So the golden rule of verbs is pretty simple. Basically, a singular subject needs a singular verb, and then a plural subject needs a plural verb. Sometimes sentences might try to trick you by putting in extra words or interrupters in the middle, and so just try to ignore those. But let's take, for example, the sentence, the list of management objectives is extensive. So what we're going to do is just ignore the words of management objectives, and the true subject is the word list, which is singular, so we use the singular verb is. The list is extensive. Okay, sometimes you're going to have instances where you have more than one subject. So if you connect them with the word and, they become plural. So analyzing and organizing are the first steps. But if you use or nor, the rule kind of changes. The verb just copies whichever subject it's sitting closest to. And so if the closest word is report, you would use the word is. If the closest word is memos, you would use are. So here again, notice that report, this is singular, so we use is. Memos is plural, so we use the word are. Sometimes a word might sound like a big group of people, but it actually just acts as one single unit. And so, for example, a company name, a book title, or a team is just one entity. And so because of this, a company like Clark, Anderson, and Horn, this takes a singular verb like has and not have. Okay, and so even if you have a book titled Thousands of Investment Tips, it's only one book, so we say it is on the list, not are on the list. And so now let's talk a little bit about some of the words that always seem to trick some people. And so these include the words anyone, everybody, each, either, neither, nobody, and everyone. And so even though everybody sounds like a whole crowd of people, grammatically, it's always a singular word. And so basically you should just say, everyone in the office has a badge, and you wouldn't say everyone in the office have a badge. And so just knowing this list will really help you avoid a lot of common writing mistakes. And so now let's talk about voice. So the active voice means that the subject is doing the action. Basically it's strong and direct, like our employees send many emails. The passive voice means that the action is happening to the subject, like many emails are sent by our employees. And in business, you really want to use the active voice when you want to be clear and forceful, and you would use the passive voice when you need to soften the blow or be extra polite, especially when you have bad news to deliver. So here we have the subjunctive mood. It sounds kind of fancy, but it really just means talking about things that aren't true right now, like a wish or a what if situation. The big rule here is that you should use the word were instead of was. And so you wouldn't say if he was in my position. Instead, you would say if he were in my position. And this also sounds much more professional as well. When it comes to time and tenses, here's a little trick. You want to use the present tense for statements that are still true right now, even if the rest of your sentence might be in the past. So for example, you would write, she said that she likes to work late. And so even though she said is in the past, she still likes it today. And so sometimes you'll have these irregular verbs that might be a little bit tricky because you can't just add an ed to the end to make them past tense. So these are words like go, see, ring, and come. And these ones change completely. So just remember that the third version of these words, so what's called a past participle, needs what's called a helper word like have or had. And so in this example here, you would say Steve had gone, but you would never say Steve had went. And so here's one of the major traps that catches a lot of people. This is lie versus lay. Lay means to put something down, like placing a piece of paper on a desk. Lie means to rest. So you would lay the report on the desk, but then the report lies there. Okay, and so if it's been sitting there for, let's say, a week, you would say it has been lying on the desk. You wouldn't say it's laying on the desk. And so going back to pillar number 4 now, that we saw in the first slide. This deals with consistency. So you wouldn't switch up your style in the middle of a sentence. So this means if you start with a direct active command like the clerk should conduct inventory, you want to keep that same energy going. So we would say, and then requisition replies. And so we wouldn't flip to the passive voice half through. What we would do is just keep your sentence flowing smoothly from start to finish. And so here, the proper way to state this is the clerk should conduct inventory and then requisition supplies. And we wouldn't say the clerk should conduct inventory, supplies should be requisitioned. And so let's just take a look at these examples here. So let's say we had a sentence, Southwest Airlines are known for a fun culture. So remember that an airline is just a single company. So instead it would be Southwest Airlines is known for a fun culture. For number 2, we have neither of the interns are going to be hired. And so here the word neither is always singular. So actually it should be neither of the interns is going to be hired. And then finally for number 3, here one of the biggest headaches are dealing with conflict. And so the word one is the true subject. And so this would be written as one of the biggest headaches is dealing with conflict. And so let's take a look at 3 more. And so for number 1, this is kind of a what if scenario. So if I blank you, I would quit. Because this is a what if scenario, we would use if I were you. Okay, for number 2, we have you should have went to lunch or you should have gone to lunch. Okay, and so the correct sentence would be you should have gone to lunch. And finally for number 3, we have the phone had rung repeatedly. And so because we have the helper word of had, the correct choice is the phone had rung repeatedly. And finally, let's just take a look at consistency. So you want to think about which option flows better. So if we have read instructions first, then you deactivate and reset the watch. Whereas for option B, we have read instructions first, then deactivate and reset the watch. Okay, and so notice that we're not saying the word you. Okay, we didn't change the structure halfway through, so we keep this as read instructions first, then deactivate and reset the watch.